are trying to beat Republicans at their own game from 2010, embracing the new rules that allow campaign funding through secret donors. Bill Burton served as President Obama's deputy press secretary, and he joins me now. You guys are known as the Super PACs, Priorities USA, and you're out with your first ad. Let's take a look.
Newt Gingrich says the Republican plan that would essentially end Medicare is too radical. Governor Haley thinks the plan is courageous, and Gingrich shouldn't be cutting conservatives off at the knees. Mitt Romney says he's on the same page as Paul Ryan, who wrote the plan to essentially end Medicare. But with Mitt Romney, you have to wonder, which page is he on today? Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
All right, this TV ad's running in South Carolina. Mitt Romney arrives in South Carolina today. It's obviously attached to Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney, what are you afraid of?
Well, we just have a simple question. Where is he on Medicare? Today, Governor Ambassador Huntsman was out on George Stephanopoulos' show. He said in answer to a simple question, would you vote for the Medicare provisions in the Paul Ryan budget? He said yes. Mitt Romney has not been quite so clear, and as we know from Mitt Romney's record, he's usually on both sides of a lot of different issues. So just have a very simple question. Where are you on Paul Ryan's budget? Newt Gingrich came out. He made his point. Nikki Haley said that he was cutting Republicans off at the knees. With Mitt Romney in South Carolina, let's just talk about where he is on Medicare.
Here's what the Romney campaign said this morning about the ad. They call it, this is spokesman Andrea Saul. She says, President Obama's first campaign ad is an attack ad. President Obama and his team are desperate to change the subject to anything other than jobs and the millions of Americans out of work with 9.6% unemployment in South Carolina. Voters are looking for a jobs plan, not a smear campaign. She's tying this to your former boss. Obviously, you used to work for him. You're trying to say that you're a separate group and that you don't coordinate. Are you worried that you're going to do damage to the president's reputation?
Well, let's start with her answer to an ad about Medicare is something that is nothing to do with Medicare. It's pretty clear that the Romney campaign doesn't want to talk about this issue, and I imagine with Ambassador Huntsman on ABC being so crystal clear on this, it's very uncomfortable for Mitt Romney, who doesn't like to be crystal clear on issues. So that was the most interesting thing to me about this statement. But secondly, this has nothing to do with President Obama or his campaign. We're not working for the campaign. This wasn't done in coordination with them. This was done by our group because we think that this is an important issue. It's
May 20th, 2011. Do the math. It's still more than a year until the general election. But you've identified Romney as the front runner. Why are you only going to be targeting Romney, or is your goal to target all of the Republicans?
Well, we'll talk about more candidates than just Mitt Romney. But what's more important than Mitt Romney here is the issue of Medicare. You're right. It's May 20th. But so rare in presidential elections is a defining moment identified so quickly. And what we saw over the course of this week was that the plan to essentially end Medicare as we know it is a litmus test for Republicans in this primary. Either you're for it or you're against it. If you're against it, as Governor Haley says, you're cutting conservatives off at the knees. If you're for it, maybe you get some more support in the Republican primary, but that is not where the American people are. The American people do not want to end Medicare.
I want to talk about the fact that you're starting one of these super PACs. Here's what Russ Feingold, who was the second name on the famous McCain-Feingold legislation on campaign finance, and Russ Feingold, somebody who's thought of as a big campaign reformer on the Democratic side. This is what he said about the start of Priorities USA. He said, I'm not going to endorse playing with the devil. I'm not going to endorse becoming just another corporate candidate. Essentially, what you're doing by this is you're trying to become corporate light, in effect, and we'll lose that battle because Republicans are going to have more money. He's essentially arguing that they're going to do it better, so why get into the same sandbox?
I have a lot of respect for Senator Feingold. He's a great guy. He's obviously been a leader on reform. We just have a difference of opinion. We're Democrats. That's what happens all the time. Our view is that Republicans are going to have a lot of outside money, as much as $500 million that's being poured in by Karl Rove, by the Koch brothers, by all these outside Republican interests. And when you've got a guy like Mitt Romney, for example, who's going to raise between $40 and $50 million in this first quarter, he's going to have a lot of money in this race. And if he makes the general election, he may have as much money as President Obama. If there's also $500 million in outside money funded by the Koch brothers, funded by Rove, the oil companies, the pharmaceutical companies, then that just can't go unanswered. The stakes are too high. If there's a Republican president in place, the impact on the American people could be disastrous.
President Obama is apparently considering signing an executive order to make it so that you have to fully disclose, if you want to apply for a federal contract, you have to fully disclose these contributions to these super PACs. Do you guys object to this?
Well, look, the president's a reformer, and he's going to be looking for ways that he can find reform wherever he can. So he's going to do what he's going to do, and we're going to follow all applicable rules and laws and do the best that we can to make sure that tough questions are asked to these Republican candidates, that we're advancing the progressive values that we have, and that, that when we get through this election cycle, that there can be the room for the kind of campaign finance reform that we need.
Are you guys going to go beyond the rules? Are you going to disclose your donors?
We're not going to go any further than Karl Rove goes. We're not in the position of trying to make things easier for Karl Rove or the Koch brothers. They've got enough advantages. They've got enough money. What we're going to do is we're just going to try to answer what is likely going to be a very negative, nasty campaign.
What part of the White House do you miss?
I was just talking to my partner, Sean Sweeney, about that this morning. Miss the people. Had some great friends there. Also missed the food, the Navy mess. Great stuff.
Good. That's good. Do you have the
What's the soup of the day?
I don't know. You tell me.
I never know anymore.
You never knew what it was? I have one rumor that I've heard, and that is you would refuse to refer to tomato soup by its real name. Why is that?
What's the real name for tomato soup?
Red roasted pepper and tomato soup. That you didn't give us the extra seasoning.
I guess
every once in a while when you showed us the
my blue-collar roots.
Your blue-collar roots, anyway. Bill Burton, former Deputy Press Secretary for President Obama, getting into this game of the super PACs.
Thanks for having me on.
First TV ad. Bill, thanks for joining us. Up next, could the Unabomber also be the Tylenol killer?